Hello, my name is J. Paul Massey Singh, Chair for the Brampton Board of Trade. And on behalf of the Board of Trade and Rogers Television, welcome to the federal candidates debate for the riding of Brampton Centre. The purpose of this debate is to give our viewers a chance to better know the candidates in their riding, where they stand on key issues, both nationally and locally. We're pleased to be joined today by 4 candidates. From the NDP, Rosemary Keenan. From the Green Party of Canada, Saul Bottcher. From the Conservative Party of Canada, Bal Gosal. And from the Liberal Party, Ramesh Sangha. Prior to this recording, the candidates drew numbers in order to determine the order in which they'll be speaking. Each candidate will have the opportunity to make an opening statement, after which time our panel of community members will ask questions regarding to the issues to be discussed. The candidate to whom the question is posed will first have time to answer, after which time the other candidates may comment or rebut. Sitting on our panel today are members of both our business and our non-for-profit community. David Clement, Executive Director of Rapport Youth and Family Services. Susan Crawford, past Chair of the Brampton Board of Trade. And Anita Stillinga, Vice President of Community Investment for United Way of Peel. At the conclusion of this question period, each candidate will have the opportunity to make a final closing statement directly to you, our viewer. With that said, the individual who drew the first number is Rosemary Keenan, and I now turn it over to her. Rosemary?
Thank you very much to the Brampton Board of Trade for hosting this debate and allowing us to discuss the issues most important to the residents of Brampton and Brampton Centre. My name is Rosemary Keenan. I'm running as your NDP candidate in the upcoming federal election. I am the daughter of immigrant parents to Canada. I am proud to be a longtime resident of Brampton. I've seen the development of our communities and the potential that Brampton residents truly have. Unfortunately, after 10 years of Stephen Harper and the Conservatives, I am worried that this potential has been compromised and our city is no longer a place where residents can reach their full potential and be truly successful. That's why in this election it's time for change in Brampton. Over the past 30 years, I have served our community in a variety of roles, including as a teacher and a school principal, and also as a community advocate for environmental protection and poverty reduction. These experiences have given me a good sense as to what the real priorities are for Brampton families. I know from talking to people door to door that issues like the cost of living, health care, education, jobs, and the need for quality, affordable childcare services are on many of your minds. I am ready to be a strong voice for you in Ottawa and make sure that our government delivers on these issues for Brampton Centre. The reason why I decided to run in this election is simply because Brampton deserves better. Better than the ineffective and out-of-touch representatives we have had over the past several years. We need someone whose top priority is to be a voice for Brampton's priorities. With an NDP government in Ottawa, we can work with all stakeholders to bring good jobs to Brampton and build a prosperity agenda where no one is left behind. With your support, I look forward to continuing this work as your representative for Brampton Centre in Ottawa. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Keenan. Mr. Bottcher, your opening comments.
Hi, my name is Saul Bottcher, and I'm the Green Party candidate for Brampton Centre. I operate a small publishing company, and I have lived in the riding for 37 years. Now, many of you have probably heard of the Green Party in name, but you might not know a lot about the party. Why are we here? What do we stand for? Well, we're not just an environmental party. We're not a protest vote. We're a party that has policies on every issue that matters to you. And tonight I'll be talking to you about some of our policies. 3 of our main priorities for this coming election will be to reestablish our democracy in Canada by democratic reform, strengthening the rules governing how our democratic processes operate. Another of our priorities will be to establish a new clean economy that specializes in clean technology, moving beyond fossil fuels and reducing fossil fuel use quickly to ensure that we're fighting climate change. And finally, we're going to try and strengthen our communities by improving infrastructure and working on youth unemployment especially, and unemployment in general. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bottcher. Mr. Gosal, your opening comments.
Well, thank you very much. Hello, my name is Bal Gosal. I'm proud to have served as Member of Parliament for Brampton, Malton, and Canada's Sports Minister. Since then, I have delivered for Bramptonians, whether it is scoring funding to help seniors stay active in the community or to help youth and those with disabilities find better employment opportunities. thanks to additional training. I'm also proud to have announced funding for infrastructure improvements across the city and, of course, our commitment to $95 million for Brampton Hume to improve transit in the city. This election is about who can deliver for our community and also about leadership. It is about who has the best policy to create jobs, to strengthen our economy and protect Canadians. Unlike the NDP and the Liberals, our Conservative government, led by Prime Minister Harper, are the only ones committed to keeping your taxes low and balancing the budget, while still providing increased benefits to the families and seniors. Let me be crystal clear. There is only one party on this stage committed to not raising your taxes, and that is the Conservative Party of Canada. We're also the only party that won't take your hard-earned money for new expensive government programs. We're also the only party committed to keeping you and your family safe, whether it is from the very real terrorist threat of ISIL or making sure the criminals pay for their crimes. Now, before we begin the debate with my fellow candidates, I want to say that it is my hope to continue working for you to keep Brampton a great place to live, work, and raise the family. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gosal. And Mr. Sangha, your opening comments.
Hello, thank you very much. Hello, everyone, and thank you for being part of this debate. My name is Ramesh Sangha. I'm Liberal candidate from Brampton Centre, a new riding, fresh new riding. I live in Brampton. I have built my successful law practice in Brampton. In the early 1990s, I immigrated to Canada with my wife and 2 kids. Like today, the economy here was not great at that time. Canada was in deep debt. As a country, we were going into the wrong directions. People were working 2 to 3 jobs just to keep up with their bills. Sounds like as it today. In 1993, the Liberal Party was elected, Conservative left. Liberal leaders made their hard decisions and led Canada into the strong economy. Like every new immigrants, we all family members, my kids and me worked hard to improve ourselves. At first, I worked in the factories. I built my freelance paralegal business. I then upgraded myself, my law degree from the Windsor University, and became lawyer, started practicing in Brampton. Before I began to run as a Liberal candidate here in Brampton, I asked myself why I want to go for this position. This is a difficult job. Many people are disillusioned with politics and politicians, especially with this present political setup, when conservatives have become a local yes man saying the word that Harper puts in their mouth. I want to work with Justin to restore the Canadian values that drew me to my family and my family to Canada country, into this great country.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sangha. We'll have a lot more opportunities to discuss your ideas, but that's all the time we have set aside for opening statements. At this point in time, we'd like to turn it over to our panelists to ask them questions and get the conversation going. Mr. Clement, what would you like to ask our candidates?
Well, I think I'll start with Mr. Bottcher. I was very pleased to hear in your opening remarks you mentioned youth unemployment and the fact that you are a small business owner. So I think this question, I'll give you the first opportunity to answer this. Youth unemployment in Peel is about 19%, way above the national average. How will you work to address the issue of opportunities for young people in our community, and what role will incentives for business play in your strategy?
Okay, to answer the first part of your question, the Green Party has a plan to create a national youth work corps, and the idea of this program is that each year $1 billion will be sent to municipalities directly, allowing the municipalities to hire local youth to perform necessary work in the community. That can be community work, it can be work on low level of infrastructure, and this will allow the municipalities to hire youth for their local needs, knowing locally what is most appropriate in each city. And as for incentives to business, we have to have incentives not only for businesses to hire youth, but we also need training incentives, and we need another program the Green Party would like to have is to incentivize workplace childcare, because one of the things we have, if you're a younger person, and I don't mean a teenager, but if you're a young adult and you already have a child, it can be very difficult. A lot of the jobs you get at that age are not compatible with the lifestyle of having a child already.
Thank you, Mr. Bottcher. Mr. Gosal, I'd like to hear from you. Youth unemployment and job creation, small business?
I think when we look at the past and the future, Conservative government under the leadership of Prime Minister Harper, we have created environment for youth unemployment to be better, youth be better connected with the jobs, small business tax credits. And we have lowered the tax for small business to 11%, that lowest in G7 countries. And we have done EI premium freeze. We have done hiring tax credits. We have done jobs grant programs and internship programs for a lot of youth. And also at the same time, we have apprenticeship programs for youth across the country as well.
Ms. Keenan, has this approach worked?
Not really. So we, as was pointed out, we do have an unemployment rate for youth, 19%. It's way too high above the national average, and we need to fix that. So we have neglected putting supports in place for our young people. The NDP is committed to an apprenticeship program, increasing the number of to 40,000, the number of apprenticeships across the country. In Brampton, we have a great opportunity. We've got Sheridan College, we've got a growing health sector with Civic Hospital and Peel Memorial. We've got Chrysler plants, we've got a lot of small businesses, and we have the opportunity to bring a university to Brampton. In terms of the small business, they generate 78 to 80% of the jobs in our community. We need to support our small businesses with tax cuts down from 11% to 9%, an innovation tax credit, and provide incentives for small businesses to take on young people in apprenticeship and internships and make sure that they are fully supported.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Keenan. Mr. Sangha, your point of view on this?
I agree with Mrs. Keenan, because the employment rate has already gone up. It's too much now. And on the other hand, Harper has slashed the number of jobs, summer jobs, and the employment insurance program. So Liberal Party has got a plan to spend $1.3 billion during, and including paying $500 for first 25 co-op students. That's why we are creating more and more infrastructure. Is historically 120 billion extra, 25 billion is being spent in infrastructure to create more and more jobs for the youth, and to improve the standard of the university for the youth in Brampton Centre.
Ms. Keenan.
I neglected to mention a really important part of the NDP platform, which you've been hearing about. We need an investment in long-term, sustainable, affordable childcare. And as Saul has pointed out too, this is an important support for our young youth and our young people. It is an investment. It is not a one-time tax credit or a giveaway that can be later clawed back. It is a long-term investment. Right now we have a situation where often one parent's career must be kept on hold because they cannot afford to work because the cost of childcare is so much. We need to free up parents both to pursue their careers, to earn a good wage, to buy their goods and services locally. This contributes to tax revenues. We've heard the example in Quebec where 70,000 women over 10 years were able to re-enter the workforce. It cut the poverty rate in half in that province. I mean, our young people are our future. They are skilled. They are ready to work. We have to support them with this child care plan.
Thank you very much, Ms. Keenan. Mr. Gosal, you want to comment?
We've seen this. It doesn't work. It raises taxes. It hurts the economy. We have done what is needed for the most families. I think parents are the most important people who know what's good for their kids. That's why universal child care benefits is working. Every parent is getting money. Children under 6 are getting up to $2,000 a year. 6 to 17 are getting $720 a year, and including with children's fitness tax credit, $1,000 for each child when you enroll them in any kind of physical activity. I think that plan is working. That's what we need. I think parents are the best suited to decide what's good for the children. That's why we're putting money back to the parents, back to the families to help with the child care.
Thank you. Mr. Sangha, then Mr. Bottcher.
I do agree with Mr. Gosal that money should go to the parents, the child benefit should go to the parents, but to those parents, those who are in need of the money, but not to those, it should not go to Mr. Harper if he has got the kids because he is earning too much. Anyone who is even earning maximum, they are still getting the child support, which is unfair. We don't want that. We have given a fair deal that is for the middle class people. We cut the tax for the middle class. We tell wealthiest to pay 1% more, wealthiest to pay more taxes. We will pay this child support directly to the parents monthly, regularly, and without tax deduction.
Mr. Bottcher, then to you, Ms. Keenan.
Well, Mr. Gosal has made the puzzling statement that childcare hurts the economy when evidence shows the opposite, so I'm wondering what he has to support that statement.
No, we know childcare is needed. That's why we're putting money back to parents' pockets. Parents can decide what's good for their children. What I said, NDP's high tax plan is going to hurt the economy, and that's what NDP is proposing. Big bureaucracies and high taxes are hurting the economy. Again, as Mr. Sangha mentioned about, he agrees with the childcare, benefits we are providing. At the same time, his leader, Trudeau, is mentioning that he's going to cancel all these, childcare benefits. That's going to hurt the parents and the economy.
Ms. Keenan, you've been waiting patiently.
Yeah, I just want to rebut. Basically, we've got to move into the 21st century here. Tax benefits don't cut it. They don't meet the unaffordability of childcare services. We have to move into the 21st century and allow our parents who are skilled, who are ready to work, who want to be in the workplace earning a decent wage to get out there and do that. And it's not we're not taxing people. We're putting an investment. We're putting an investment in the future, and we have to do this across the country, make it a national standard, lift all boats, as they say, and reach the neediest first, but make sure that our young families are supported in this way.
And Mr. Sangha, to you.
Justin Trudeau says, as Mr. Gosal has just mentioned the name of Justin Trudeau. Yes, Justin Trudeau says, give the money to the person, those who need it, but not to the person, those who are already having enough. So that's our policy. We don't cut. We will give the $2,500 extra payment to in the child support benefits to the needy persons, not to those who doesn't need it.
Thank you very much. Perhaps it's time for a new question and get some more discussion going. Ms. Crawford, what would you like to ask?
I'm going to ask a question about infrastructure investment, and I'm going to direct my question to Mr. Gosal. Commute times continue to rise, as I can personally attest to by the length of time it took me to get to the studio today. The reality is there are more cars on the road today. Where do you feel the transportation infrastructure investments need to be made to best benefit Brampton? That's the first part of my question. And secondly, how will you work with other levels of government to balance those needs against the needs in other communities?
Well, thank you for the question. We have been working with the other levels of the government. We have proven that in the past. During that session, we invested billions of dollars in infrastructure, and that created jobs, that stimulated the economy. We ran a little bit of a deficit. Now we are in a balanced budget. And we have the longest and the most aggressive infrastructure plan for Canadians. Now, first of all, we're the only government who made gas tax permanent for all municipalities. That is the gas tax every taxpayer pays at the pump, and we're turning that back to the communities. And Brampton had been given $80 million in 2006 from the gas tax. We have also committed $95 million to Brampton's Hume. That's Brampton's new transit system that's helping. And other important projects, funded by Government of Canada, Conservative Party, Victoria Park Stadium, $241,000. Balmoral Recreation Centre, $380,000. Conservatives will fund billions in new infrastructure money without raising taxes with a balanced budget.
Thank you, Mr. Gosal. Ms. Keenan, a lot of talk about the amounts that have been spent. Has enough been spent? Is Brampton getting proportionally what we deserve?
No. Brampton is not getting its fair share. For some time now, there's been coverage in the newspaper and media about the Fair Share Task Force. Since the 1970s, and this is through Liberal and Conservative governments, the funding formula has not changed to allow Brampton to get its fair share, whether it's for affordable housing, whether it's for transit, whatever facilities are needed to make this city work well. So I do believe that's shameful. With the NDP, we're looking at a long-term sustainable plan to ensure that funding is there. Tom O'Keefe is a leader who is a collaborative leader working with cities. He's not one to impose his agenda. The NDP will work collaboratively with cities. We've got 80% of the needs of infrastructure downloaded to municipalities and only 8% of the funding. That formula has to change. The federal government has to be a strong player at the table with all stakeholders to make sure we bring our infrastructure into the 21st century.
Thank you. Mr. Sangha?
When we talk to the infrastructure, you know, we have to be a very honest and true in saying this. We are spending money on the infrastructure. Mr. Bal Gosal just told that they had been spending billion dollars in the infrastructure. But see the shape of the economy. Economy is shrunk to its lowest level. People are not getting proper jobs. They are not meeting hand to meet. And it's very hard for them to pull out their lives. But this is the need of the day. And Justin Trudeau has got the guts to say, oh, we will spend money, extra $60 billion into the transit, social, as well as green infrastructure. Once you say really this is going to happen, and it will happen, and then only we can move the economy forward.
Mr. Bottcher, then Mr. Gosal.
Thank you. I believe the question asked also about congestion, and a recreation center and a stadium don't do anything about congestion, and this is the problem with just throwing around amounts, dollar amounts for infrastructure. You have to talk about what it's being spent on. We have to have a national priority on boosting transit. That's what's going to help with congestion. Congestion not only causes a lot of pollution, it also really hampers productivity. People are wasting a huge amount of time getting to and from work instead of either working or being with their families. So a national priority on transit has to come along with infrastructure spending, or it's meaningless.
Mr. Gosal.
You know, infrastructure, we have the biggest and the longest infrastructure plan for Canada, Building Canada Fund. Our conservative infrastructure plan is 3 times as much as the Liberal plan. And we are doing that by keeping taxes low with balanced budget. You know, Justin Trudeau and the Liberals, they want us back in the deficits. And they will say anything and everything to get your votes. And we have previous record from the Liberals when they were in power, never delivered on any of the promises, and just talk. And Prime Minister Harper and the Conservative Party have invested in infrastructure, and we will keep doing that by keeping taxes low and strong economy and balanced budget.
Mr. Bottcher and then Ms. Keenan.
Thank you. I feel that Mr. Gosal has actually just proven my point, because if we've tripled infrastructure spending, or spending 3 times as much as in the past, we all know congestion is still here, so clearly money alone is not going to do it.
I just wanted to add, Brampton has suffered so many missed opportunities. In Brampton Centre, we have a huge industrial and business sector. There's plenty of opportunities there for bringing good jobs to Brampton, but we need people who are going to be our voice in Ottawa. I want to be that voice. I believe that Mr. Gosal has missed an opportunity, for example, to bring the infrastructure for the Pan Am Games to Brampton. And I mean, I understand that City of Brampton made a decision not to go ahead with that plan, but where was Mr. Gosal in the very beginnings of planning those games and making sure, as Minister of Sport, that our city was represented?
Mr. Sangha, what would you be doing on a local level to help bring some of this infrastructure investment to Brampton?
When we talk local level, you know, as a federal member of parliament, I have to see that fair share of is getting to the coming to the Brampton. Brampton needs infrastructure to be spent on transit, onto our social infrastructure, as onto the green. When we talk about the roads, when we talk about the underground water, underground sewerage, underground things, when we talk about the big buildings, everything needs infrastructure, and we need to spend infrastructure with the Brampton too. I will sit on with my partners at the Brampton level and see that how much is we can provide continuously, sustainably to the Brampton.
Mr. Gosal, a lot of comments around Brampton not necessarily getting proportionally what we deserve. Can you comment on that?
Well, first of all, small businesses are backbone of our community, of our economy. They create jobs. We have created environment for small business by keeping taxes low. You know, it's up to 11% and it's going down to 9%. And NDP want to raise that tax. And 1.3 million net new jobs created since the depth of the recession. Biggest gain in all G7 countries, and most of those jobs are permanent in the private sector. As far you know, Pan Am Games are concerned, very proud to have delivered the most successful Pan Am Games in Ontario ever hosted. And Government of Canada spent $500 million on infrastructure and legacy. We built stadiums, we built fields, and Brampton was supposed to get, you know, baseball and softball. First, Brampton didn't bid for anything. Then, you know, we worked with the organizing committee and you know, Sport Canada. Brampton was supposed to get softball and baseball, but City of Brampton decided against that. You know, we have to work with the municipalities, and if the City of Brampton decided against not getting any of those you know, facilities, there's not much you know, we can do.
Thank you, Mr. Gosal. I'd now like to get another question into to our candidates. Ms. Stillinga.
Thank you. So this question is about a national poverty strategy. We hear many sound bites about the eroding middle class, and we've seen those shifts in our community here as well. In 1980, 2 of our neighborhoods were considered to be low income, and now as of 2010, 45% of our neighborhoods are low income. And in addition, we have 20% of children in Peel living in poverty, 18% of those with disabilities, 40% of seniors living alone, and 33% of newcomers live in poverty. What is the role of your government in poverty reduction, and what specifically will you do to address poverty in our community? And I'll direct the question to Ms. Keenan.
Thanks, Anita. Yeah, so definitely, again, Thomas Mulcair and the NDP are about developing a national strategy that reaches out to all communities, including those in Brampton, and I certainly agree the need in Brampton is high. 40 to 45% of our neighborhoods in Brampton now are low income to very low income, and seniors are a growing demographic that is slipping below the poverty level. When I talk to people at the door, they're saying, what are they talking about the middle class? I'm slipping out of the middle class. I don't have enough to afford the basic goods and services I need. I'm dependent on Knights Table and food banks. I'm dependent on charity. I'm just a paycheck away from being out on the street. We have people, families, young families, having to spend the summer living in their cars because the unaffordability of housing. So yes, the NDP has a plan to address poverty across the country. The NDP has a plan to bring in better support for seniors through a national aging strategy, which makes it more affordable for seniors to live at their own home, and makes other things more affordable, such as reducing just the little things like ATM fees, making sure also that seniors have a pharmacare program to make medicines and drugs more affordable. For young people, we need to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour.
We're really passionate on this one, and we'll have a chance to talk a little further, but I want to make sure we get Mr. Bottcher and the rest in. Mr. Bottcher?
Okay, well, I agree with Mrs. Keenan that you know, we hear a lot about the middle class, but what about the poor? The poor are suffering more than the middle class. Measures that the Green Party would like to put in place to directly assist the poor include implementing a guaranteed livable income for all people in Canada so that everybody has the money they need to afford the necessities of life and live with dignity. We're going to pay for this through what's called a carbon fee and dividend system, which means that companies that pollute will pay into a fund that doesn't go into the general accounts of the government, and it's paid out to all Canadian citizens in a check annually. We also are going to implement a national housing strategy using a housing first approach, which means that the priority of that strategy is to get people directly into long-term and stable housing. We're going to support workplace childcare through tax incentives to employers who create childcare in the workplace. And we're going to protect and expand the CPP to assist seniors.
Thank you. Mr. Sangha, poverty reduction here in Peel?
See, Liberal Party is committed to remove the poverty. We talk about the middle class. When middle class is strong, which we want to make the middle class strong, this middle class is backbone of the total Canada. We have to see that middle class standard is being raised up. How? It's not by cutting the jobs. NDP is talking about job, or making more people to pay more taxes. And on this side, conservative, they are unloading the middle class with more taxes and giving benefit to the richest. What we see here, we cut benefits, we cut the tax for the lower class, middle class people and the persons, those who join to middle class. Those who are at the low level, they need our support at this time. We will support them fully. And but we have told rich persons, those who are at 1%, Justin Trudeau says, you have earned enough, you have good money, come on, support the.
Thank you, Mr. Sangha. Mr. Gosal, how do we attack this problem?
Well, we're already attacking it. You know, Conservative government with our latest family, tax breaks. Every family with kids under, 6 is getting $2,000 extra. 6 to 17 getting, $720 extra. Vast majority of this will flow to middle class families. Last fall, UNICEF reported the child poverty rate in Canada decreased during the recession, pulling 180,000 children out of poverty. And UNICEF credited this decrease to our government's action to put money back in the pockets of Canadian families. Number of Canadians living below low-income cutoff is now at the lowest level ever. Since 2006, there are 225,000 few children living in poverty in Canada. This is a conservative record. This, as conservatives, we will continue to protect our economy, create jobs, and continue to invest in where help is most needed. I can tell you.
Thank you, Mr. Gosal. Ms. Keenan?
I think we have to refocus here to Brampton. We've heard the stats, which are really unacceptable in terms of people in Brampton slipping into poverty. The wonderful thing about the NDP is it's a multi-pronged approach. We bring in a minimum wage of $15 an hour. Make it a benchmark across the country. It's a standard to which all can work towards. We invest in small businesses who generate most of the jobs. I heard from a woman recently who was so frustrated. She lost her job. She was well qualified, and she doesn't want to rely on poverty or handouts or benefits. She wants a job, and that's what the NDP plan is all about, generating jobs in our community. This young woman said, I don't want to rely on charity. This diminishes me, who I am. We've got to turn that around for the people of Brampton Centre.
Thank you, Ms. Keenan. Mr. Bottcher, the last word on this one is yours.
Okay, we heard about the middle class again, and that apparently giving money to the middle class will help the poor. This sounds to me a lot like trickle-down economics, which we tried in the Reagan-Thatcher era, and that doesn't work. It's been shown not to work. If you want to help the poor, why would you not just give the money directly to the poor instead of to the middle class? It doesn't make sense.
Thank you very much. We can come back to some of these issues again, but I want to make sure we have an opportunity to talk about as many things as possible. Mr. Clement, what would you like to ask?
Well, a number of you have touched on affordable housing, so the next question is going to focus exactly on that. And I'm going to start off with Mr. Sangha. Many families and individuals are unable to find affordable housing here in Peel. There are 12,000 people currently on the wait list for affordable housing. The wait times are measured in years, not months. Over 5,000 new applications for affordable housing subsidies in 2014 alone. With the lack of rental unit construction, rapid population growth, increasing poverty rates, how will your national long-term strategy address the affordable housing crisis here in Peel?
Thank you for asking me the question. Under the conservative government, everyone has a very hard time to make both ends meet. People are not suffering too much from making both ends meet, making their bills paid by the earning, especially those who are on EI or on benefits. They are not able to afford their houses even. They are not able to pull their daily lives. So safe and adequate affordable housing is essential for these strong families and communities and the economy. In Brampton, there is a long waiting list of 15 years and over for the affordable housing, which is not acceptable at all. Liberal government will correct this one. How we will correct it is the national housing strategy is required to be changed. New investment. We have decided to invest of $20 billion into the infrastructure which will build new houses for the seniors, houses for this people, those who need it.
Thank you, Mr. Sangha. Mr. Bottcher.
Okay, it's not just a matter of capacity in building houses, it's also the system itself getting people into those houses, and that's why I mentioned in the national housing strategy that we're proposing what's called the housing first approach, which means that the first thing you do is get the person into the house, and if there are some details you need to work out, paperwork and whatever else, you can get to that in time. But the important thing is when somebody does not have a home, or when they have a substandard home that's causing great problems in their life, you have to get them in there. 15 years is ridiculous, 1 year is ridiculous. It has to happen a lot faster. Capacity isn't the only issue.
Ms. Keenan?
Yes, and I'd just like to extend on that. Saul is absolutely right. We need to focus on housing first. Currently, I do sit on the homelessness partnering strategy with Region of Peel, and we're dealing with people in community services, Region of Peel, who know what the needs are here in Brampton Centre. I want to hear what those situations are. I want to be involved in being a voice for Brampton Centre in Ottawa. The NDP does have a national housing strategy. Again, the NDP is one that will collaborate, will work with all levels of government, will work with our local municipality to make sure we bring this forward and make sure everyone is safely and affordably housed.
Mr. Gosal, how do we get through this issue and the wait times?
Well, our government spends $1.7 billion annually to provide social housing subsidies to nearly 600,000 households through CMHC. CMHC offers over $1 billion annually in low-cost loans for social housing projects. And from 2014 to 2019, we have committed to provide $253 million per year under investment in affordable housing, under which provinces and territories match the federal investment to provide affordable housing projects to meet local needs and measures pressures. And the funny thing is, both NDP and Liberals voted against all these measures. They will say and talk about anything to get the votes, but when it comes in the House of Commons, they vote against everything we try to do for affordable housing, jobs, and economy.
Ms. Keenan?
I just want to say, if we voted against it, it didn't go far enough. We need a long-term national strategy, and the issue is being raised, well, how do we afford, how do we support this financially? We need to have a fairer taxation system, and the NDP will raise taxes for the wealthiest corporations from 15 to 17%. This is the level across all OECD countries. It's quite reasonable. We have seen what reduced taxes for corporations has done. We've got manufacturing jobs pouring out of the country. The NDP wants to support Canadian manufacturing, build our own economy here at home, and be a representative for Canada on the world stage in terms of jobs and economy and housing and infrastructure.
Thank you. Mr. Gosal, then Mr. Sangha. Mr. Gosal actually noted first, please.
Mr. Gosal has said that...
Mr. Sangha, Mr. Gosal actually indicated first. You're right after him. Mr. Gosal?
As NDP is proposing, every economist in the country has said, as soon as they raise even 1% of the tax on those corporations and small businesses, 250,000 jobs will be lost next day, including in Brampton. NDP's plan is high taxes. That's going to kill jobs in Brampton and across the country. That's one don't want to go. We have created the best environment. Forbes magazine have mentioned that Canada is the best country to start a business in. Businesses are the one who create jobs. They are the one who make strong economy. And that's what we are creating, an environment for business to create jobs, have a strong economy, and we'll never go that route.
Mr. Sangha, you wanted to comment?
Yes, from last 10 years, we see that conservatives have done nothing. Mr. Gosal is trying to say that liberal promises, but they don't fulfill it. No. We have got a real plan, real change. To bring the real change is the money spent into the infrastructure, make the build affordable houses, make the things grow up, make the economy grow up, and make the people of the middle class to be happy and enjoy the life. Thank you.
Ms. Keenan? I think we've drifted off into some other issues here now.
We have a little bit, but I just wanted to say the Conservative record stands for itself. The jobs have been, as I say, pouring out of the country. And in Brampton, we've got the type of jobs that are being generated are low wage, precarious, short-term, without benefits. Families cannot survive in that climate. And the other issue nationwide is we don't want to move our resources out of the country to be processed elsewhere. We want to process our resources here at home that generates good jobs for Canadians. We want to move into research and development in all sectors, diversify our enemy economy. There are so many opportunities here in Ontario and Brampton to get involved in that prosperity agenda for the country.
Thank you, Ms. Keenan. Ms. Crawford, what would you like to ask of our candidates?
Well, I'd like to move on to Canada's performance in the international arena and focus on the current refugee crisis in Europe. Canada has always been known as a safe haven for refugees, and I think as Canadians, we're proud of that reputation in the international community. Clearly, there is an unacceptable crisis in Europe right now with the Syrian refugees. My question is twofold, and I'm going to direct it to Mr. Sangha. Has Canada's response to the crisis been sufficient, first? And second, how do we balance out our needs for safety and security against our moral obligations to the refugees and the international community as a whole?
Canada is a country of immigrants. We have seen that we always accept the immigrants, and we have to keep on accepting the immigrants. And it was open immigrants from 1972, from all over the world people can come. Where when we talk about the refugees, a refugee is a person who needs help, who is desperately having everything lost for him, and he has no place to live, and he has to be given a good help by someone. So Canada was the country, Canada has a standard, Canada was internationally known for this. But today, situation has become different. Under the garb of fear and security, they are not being allowed. From time to time, all the parties, or even the previous prime minister, conservative prime minister, he has requested that let's do our job, let's move forward as fast as possible. But Mr. Harper is just talking and saying only. He has first of all refused to do it, but now he says he will do something, but when, he is not clear.
Thank you, Mr.
This is
Sangha.
the time now we have
Thank
to
you,
do
Mr. Sangha. Ms. Keenan, has our response been enough?
Well, I just want to say the NDP was, Tom O'Carroll was the first party to come forward immediately and address this situation. Also, the response of Canadians across the country to wanting to help and support the Syrian refugees has been outstanding, and in fact, Canadians have shamed the Conservatives and the Liberals for coming forward with a plan. Now, the NDP has a solid immigration policy that is focused on families first. We're recognizing that many of these refugees are young families fleeing their situation. They want to relocate in a safe place, and that is Canada for them. And they want to contribute to the country. They don't want to come here and depend on services. They want to be active, contributing members of the society. We need to support that. The NDP immigration focuses on family reunification. The Conservatives have slashed that plan in immigration and have focused on bringing in 3 times as many of temporary foreign workers. Those kinds of policies create an unstable workforce and just drive people into poverty. People are separated from spouses, parents from their children. Focus on family reunification, support those who want to have permanent residence in Canada, and let's build the Canada that we know that is a good, respectable, contributing member on the world stage.
Thank you, Ms. Keenan. Mr. Bottcher.
Well, on the issue of security, it's upsetting to me that that even comes up when there's a crisis like this. This is the country that fought at Vimy Ridge, and now we're going to worry about an essentially negligible risk to our security when there are people that need our help. You know, to do good things takes courage. And yes, we may take on a slight risk bringing people here, but so what? It needs to be done. These people need our help. In addition to that, I feel the issue of security itself is a bit trumped up because it's not as if the boat arrives and they let the refugees run off into the forest. That's not how it works. They're screened. The people on the boat can tell you if other people on the boat are ISIS members. Yeah, that's the guy that shot my uncle. Don't let him in. It's pretty simple. All the logistics involved can be handled, and I feel the risk to Canadians is minimal, and to not take on that risk when there are people that so desperately need our help as a wealthy and capable country, that's morally wrong.
Mr. Gosal, your colleagues have all been critical of your party's approach.
Well, our Conservative government has committed to continue to assist refugees from Iraq and Syria. We have committed to accepting additional 20,000 refugees in addition to providing humanitarian assistance. That is very important. We have to provide humanitarian assistance on the ground as well. And we have accepted more than 23,000 refugees from Iraq. And we cannot simply solve this humanitarian crisis by restructuring hundreds of, thousands of refugees. We must take security into consideration. This past week, and our Conservative government also announced up to $100 million in matching funds to help those on the ground. We have to work, on the ground and also do the security checks. And our forces are doing a great job in controlling some of the ISIL. That is very important. We have to work, at the source so we can stop this humanitarian crisis as well as do the security checks.
Thank you. Mr. Sangha.
It's a shame on the part of all conservatives, those who just don't want to do this, bring the refugees as soon as possible, follow the feelings of the Canadians, what they want, follow the feelings of the people, those who are outside, who are in need of the refugee status and help. And I'm really, when Harper says he's more worried about the security and not worried about this refugee settlement. And one conservative person, spokesman, he said, how many people are dying here in Canada into the pools? So if one person dies, what's there? And Mr. Gosal, you said it. We Bramptonians, we don't need the refugees. How come you can say it? And Mr. Harper was here in his office on that day when he said this thing. So do you have answer to that?
Mr. Bottcher, I know you're next, but I think that direct question will. Mr. Gosal.
Well, those comments that were printed don't reflect my personal position and don't reflect what I said. I was responding to an inquiry about what I was hearing at the doors. I've talked to a lot of people at the doors, and they agree with Prime Minister Harper's approach. We have to work with agency to work on the ground on a humanitarian crisis, as well as do the security checks before we bring in people. We have to look at logistics. We have to have housing. We have to have all the facilities when we bring in refugees. We cannot just bring in refugees and just leave them there. We have to have the plan that's working, and people and friends and all the constituents in Brampton and across the country agree with Prime Minister Harper's approach that we have to do the security checks and we have to work on the ground on the humanitarian crisis as well.
Mr. Bottcher, then to you, Ms. Keenan.
All right, well, I'm going to make sure that I quote Mr. Gosal properly. What we just heard him say now was that bringing in a bunch of refugees won't solve the humanitarian crisis. Well, by definition, for those refugees, yes, it will, because then they will be here. I'd also like to say that nobody is proposing to bring refugees over without any plan. That would be ridiculous. There have been many plans proposed, including one that you may have heard of by retired General Rick Hillier, who believes we can bring in 50,000 by the end of the year. This is a general. The military specializes in moving people and equipment rapidly and correctly across the globe. I think he knows what he's talking about. So when we're talking about the numbers of 10 or 20,000 over 4 years, forget that. We could do a lot more.
Ms. Keenan.
I'd just like to add to that, I did hear General Hillier explain the plan and explain that we have full security measures in place. We get the refugees here quickly, get them out of those terrible situations they are in. We can do the security here in Canada and support the people coming in. We have to, as General Hillier said, stop being afraid of our own shadow. There's a process in place. We did it with the Vietnamese refugees. And we got immigration officials on the ground in those zones, and we got the people out quickly so that they weren't suffering any longer.
Thank you, Ms. Keenan. We're running down on time. I want to make sure we get at least one more question in. Ms. Stillinga, what would you like to ask our candidates?
Thank you. This question is about mental health. We've heard very little about mental health so far, yet it is the second leading cause of death in Canada. Our community here locally has very little access to supports, especially around mental health services, and our population growth has long exceeded the current system, and wait lists can be very, very long, often up to 2 years, and services sometimes are not available in our community. What will your government do to address mental health, and what will you do specifically to increase access to services? And I'll direct it to Mr. Gosal.
Well, thank you. And we are the party and the government who are working with agencies, provinces, to have record levels of funding to healthcare. Under Liberal government, it was cut by 30%, and we have increased that funding to 70%. Healthcare transfers will grow each year under the Conservative government. In fact, in Ontario, we are increasing healthcare transfers by more than Ontario Liberal government is increasing their own spending healthcare. This year alone, we have given $735 million more in health transfers to Ontario, and Wynne government only increased healthcare spending for $600 million only. With provinces, we're working under the mental health care program as well to create more facilities, more doctors to take care of this.
Thank you. Ms. Keenan.
Yes, you're right, Mr. Gosal. The Liberals did make enormous cuts to health care, and this has continued under the Conservative government. Stephen Harper refused to renegotiate the Canada Health Accord. That is the vehicle by which transfer payments are made from the federal government, our taxes, to the provinces to make sure health needs are met. They've done this in education, healthcare, infrastructure, you name it. We need to get those health accord transfer payments renegotiated. Thomas Mulcair is a leader who wants to work with the provinces to make sure that federal funding comes to the provinces to support healthcare, and particularly in Brampton and Peel. We know that Region of Peel Community Services is doing tremendous work at assessing the needs. We need to be at the table with Region of Peel, and I want to be a voice for bringing those funding supports to Brampton.
Mr. Bottcher.
Okay, when we want to talk about mental health, there's several issues there that make mental health difficult. First of all, there is a cultural issue around it that we've started to do better with this, but we still need to change the way we think about mental health issues, and we need to keep pressing to change the culture on that so that people are not afraid to get help, because there's still far too many people that are afraid to get help. A second item that I'd like to mention is the Green Party in healthcare would like to emphasize the concept of team medicine built around the family doctor, where specialists and nurses and others work together with the family doctor. One of the difficult things with mental health is it's a more subtle issue than something like a sore knee. Often there's information that one or another specialist may have that needs to be passed between them, and with a more team-emphasized health approach that would happen. And finally, I'd like to mention that the Green Party will expand our universal health system to cover prescription medication, which for some mental health issues is essential, especially if you are a poor person that cannot afford the medication that's been prescribed to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bottcher. Mr. Sangha?
Mental health issue is a very critical issue. People, those who are suffering from this mental issue, may be due to his health conditions from the start, or maybe it's due to traumatic accident, or maybe due to veterans, those who are coming from after fighting big fights. This is an issue is required to be tackled, but Harper government has cut the infrastructure for mentally disabled persons' needs. Mr. Trudeau, he has earmarked the special $2 billion for this, to have new facilities for these people, to give them a help if they want to stay at home. Caregiver should be given the benefits to support him, and they have to be physically and mentally, they have to be dealt with in a respectful manner, which they want, everybody else wanted. As a Canada Pension chairperson, I have been meeting, and as a lawyer, a personal injury lawyer, I have been meeting these people at very often occasions and seeing their conditions. It is very, very hard for them to pull on their lives. They need support, and Liberal Party is bent upon giving them support.
Thank you, Mr. Sangha. That's actually all the time that we have for the question portion of the debate. Time goes really quickly when we're having these types of spirited exchanges. Now's the opportunity for each of our candidates to give a closing statement to our viewers. So the person who had drew the first number is, the order is Mr. Sangha. The first closing statement is yours.
One second. Thank you very much.
Of course. No. The ending sneaks up on all of us.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being a part of this important local debate, and thank you for this Brampton Board of Trade and Rogers for hosting this one. And I want to thank you everyone from my heart. When we look back in today's discussion, we see real difference between the parties and their positions regarding the Brampton issues. we Liberals have represent a real change. We stand for historically, we will be investing 60 billion extra than what we were spending earlier, and then we will bring that change for the middle class, uplift the middle class. If middle class is coming up, they are having good, Canada will be good, Canada will be having better life, better standard. So I, Ramesh Sangha, I request you, and being a proud Liberal, being a proud member of the team Trudeau, I request you to come forward on 19th October
Thank you, Mr.
and vote
Sangha.
for me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Gosal.
Well, once again, I would like to thank the organizers, Brampton Board of Trade Rogers, and my fellow candidates this evening to share our vision and hopes for Brampton and all of Canada. I'm confident during our debate that choice has become even more clear. The Conservative Party is the only party campaigning to balance the budget and cut taxes. The NDP and Liberals happily admit they will raise your taxes. That includes raising taxes on both your income and on Canada job creators. I also want to remind you not to be fooled by the promises of other parties who will say or do anything to win your votes, but rarely follow through on their promises. You only have to look back at the Liberals when they were in power, the Red Book, and they're going to cut GST, never follow through with any of those promises. Again, I want to remind you, it's our party that can be trusted. After all, it was this Conservative government under the leadership of Prime Minister Harper who guided Canada through the worst global recession, created 1.3 million jobs.
Thank you, Mr. Gosal. Mr. Bottcher, your closing thoughts.
Okay, I'd like to thank the Board of Trade for inviting me. I'd like to thank the panel and my fellow candidates, and I'd like to thank you for watching this. We've heard a lot of different ideas here today, a lot of good ideas. One of the things I'd like to emphasize, the government is not merely a giant piggy bank where our money goes in, our money comes out. The most important role of government is to set priorities and to create systems that produce the results we need. So, you know, when we talk about amounts of money, it has to go beyond that. So I urge all of you to look into the platforms of all the parties and to see how they are setting priorities and how they are ensuring that the money is used in a way that will be productive. If you'd like to learn more about Green Party policies, please visit our Brampton team site at bramptongreens.com. And thank you very much for watching.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bottcher. And Ms. Keenan, the final word is yours.
In this election, it's very clear. Canadians are voting for change. We have all seen the damage done by 10 years of Stephen Harper and the Conservatives, and the Liberal plan promises much of the same. I find it concerning that during every election, the Liberal and Conservative candidates that Brampton continues to send to Ottawa promise to bring improvements to our city, but as the 9th largest municipality, we are still lagging behind. That's why Brampton Centre needs better representation and a stronger voice in Ottawa. We need to work together to re-establish Brampton as an important economic hub. We need to work together to restore Canada's position in the world and return to being a country that welcomes newcomers, encourages diversity, and empowers all Canadians to succeed. I have decades of public experience and a commitment to making my community a better place to live. This experience has developed the attitudes and skills I need to be an open, productive, and effective candidate who's ready to work with others.
Thank you, Ms. Keenan. Greatly appreciated. And thank you to all our candidates and our panelists. This brings our debate to a close. We'd like to thank you, our viewers, for making the time to join us and want to be sure to urge you to vote. Finally, please tune on Rogers Television on October 19th at 9 p.m. For up-to-date local results and in-depth analysis of all your local ridings. Thank you very much for joining us. Have a good evening.